Welcome to the Rap Soul Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of music that moves our hearts and gets our feet tapping. This is the intersection of rap and soul music from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. We appreciate you for listening. Share this podcast with a friend or family member who loves music as much as you do. The podcast is hosted by 12 Kyle. Next up, the Rap Soul Podcast.
Welcome. Thank you for checking out another edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. I am your host, 12 Kyle. Again, I want to thank you for checking out this new endeavor. As many of you know, maybe you don't know, the 12 Kyle Podcast is where I started. I still have a podcast there, but if you came to the Rap Soul Podcast from the 12 Kyle Podcast, thank you. If you found this podcast on social media, thank you. If you just randomly stumbled upon this podcast, thank you. I want to thank you all again for showing up and listening and watching. What the Rap Soul Podcast is what we call the intersection of rap, soul, hip hop, and R&B from music from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. What we do here is we talk about artist features, album reviews, and just discussions about hip hop, R&B, and any and everything around it from that particular era. It's a time capsule that we would like to take you into. That being said, again, I want to thank you for showing up. And one thing that I will ask of all of you who are listening, take this podcast, click the link, and share it with someone who loves music as much as you do, because obviously you would not be here if you did not either love music or love me, or both. Let's get started. On this particular episode, what I want to talk about is the top 10 rap duos. It's quite simple. When you look at hip hop, we're no longer in a space where rap groups exist. Everybody is kind of out for themselves, and rightfully so. I understand it. But there was a period of time where we had rap groups, and rap groups were really a thing. But then as the years progressed, we wanted to look at groups and how we would, kind of figure out who's the best. But what I wanted to do on this particular episode is not deal with the groups, but just duos. So in trying to figure out who is the best rap duo, let's first define what duo is. Duo, definition, meaning two people. That's it. 1, 2. That's it. Not no more, no less. So if you're a rap group like Run DMC, you don't qualify for this episode. And I know what you're thinking. Well, wait a minute. It was Run and it was DMC. No, there was 3 people. It was Jam Master Jay. His name wasn't in the marquee, but you know that they're a group or a trio, if you will. Same for A Tribe Called Quest. A Tribe Called Quest is really truly 4 members. But for a lot of their albums, it was 3 members. Phife Dawg, rest in peace. Q-Tip, Ali Shaheed Muhammad, and then sometimes Jerobi. But I wanted to kind of define duo before we get started, because sometimes people get it twisted. Now, let me talk about the other side of duos. When you talk about duos, could you include someone like Redman and Method Man? Because technically, they've made albums together. And they have. But the reality is, Red and Meth aren't a duo. They've done duo work. They've created, I think, 2 or 3 albums. But they're not going to qualify for this discussion. Same for Future and Drake. I think they've done a couple of albums together. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But no, they're not going to qualify either. So that's the criteria. You have to be a duo. Not a duo in a sense, because even like Redman and Method Man, they're their own separate entities. They're not a duo all the time. They're a duo sometimes, and so forth and so on. So that's how we're going to do it. Now, before I give you my certified top 10 rap duos of all time, I created a criteria. I think criteria is very important when we talk about lists and we talk about where people ranked, because I think a lot of times the discussion tends to go with what we like. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. But the flip side of it is we all don't like the same thing, right? So some of us who've been around for a while, some of us who are veterans, if you will, if you see my t-shirt, it says 90s hip hop veteran, which I am. If you've been around for a while, then maybe what you like and what you listen to isn't the same as somebody that's 25, 26 years old. And I'm okay with that, particularly as a 51-year-old at the time of this recording, a 51-year-old rap hip hop head and a soul enthusiast. No, I'm not going to like the same thing as somebody that's probably 32 years old. Maybe, maybe not. That being said, I think it's very important for us to establish a criteria before we lay out any list. One of the most frustrating things that you can find on the internet, and I think a lot of times it's done on purpose, is when you see these lists that come out like the greatest rappers of all time. And then they'll have these lists, and on the list, in very small fine print, it'll say, this is how we based it on. And we based it on, a survey of people, or we based it on the people that work in this office building, or we based it on, I don't know, we based it on the day of the week. It's always something random and crazy. It's never anything concrete. So what I want to do on this, not just this episode, but anytime we talk about lists on this podcast, I would like to set forth a criteria. I think criteria is important. I think it gives you a barometer as to where you, and a baseline to where you need to start and finish. That being said, here's my criteria for this particular list. One, and it's only 5 simple things that each duo must have. One, coherence. How do they sound? How do their songs sound? How do their albums sound? Are they clear? Do you understand what they're saying? There's one group that I know, there's one duo. Let me rephrase that. There's one duo that I know that made a song that is a banger. And you could make a case that they probably could be a top, maybe not top 10, but maybe an honorable mention. And they made a song that I don't know what the hell they're saying. The song is jamming, but I don't know what they're saying. Shout out to Camp Low, because Lucchini still slaps to this day. I can't tell you what the hell they're saying. And this song has been out since 93, 94, something like that. I don't know. And you can make a case that they're probably honorable mention duo, a hip hop duo. They didn't make the list. They're not coherent. I mean, the lyrics are, at least not to me. But yeah, being coherent is a must. And these are no particular order. Impact. I think impact is important, but let's preface this. Impact in their prime, because that's very important. Here's the thing about rap duos. There are not a lot of rap duos of today in 2024 at the time of this recording, so we're going back. So if I used a group like Camp Low, for example, I can't quantify their impact in 2024. I'd have to go back to 1994, right? Because that was when they were in their prime. So impact, I'm always going to talk up. If I use impact, and I'm very careful about using impact, because impact is very subjective. It is very subjective. And there's really no one true way to measure impact, because sometimes we mistake impact for popularity. And just because it's popular doesn't mean it's good. Just because it's good doesn't mean that it should be popular. Always remember that. That being said, impact in their prime, I think that's what matters. Impact in the time that they were in their prime, whatever time frame defines their prime, that's what we're talking about. Number 3, replayability. Can you listen to their music over and over again and still get something from it and still vibe to it, still bop to it, still truly enjoy the music? Number 4, lyrics. Lyrics matter. Don't ever say that lyrics don't matter, because lyrics do matter. I don't care about a beat. If you have a dope beat, will I bob my head to it? Of course I would. Would I whop it out to it? Of course I would. But it's very important that you have some lyrics behind that dope beat. And last but not least, the production. How does it sound? How does it sound sonically? How do you sound rapping over these beats? So all of those things: coherence, impact in their prime, replayability, lyrics, and production. These are the things that help define how I came to my top 10 rap duos. And I've already described what a duo is. 2 people. That's it. It could be 2 rappers. It could be a DJ and a rapper. It can't be a DJ and a DJ. It can't be 3 rappers. It can't be 3 rappers and a DJ. It has to be 2 people. That's it. So, that being said, let's get into the top 10. Coming in at number 10, Run the Jewels. Run the Jewels consists of Killer Mike and LP. Killer Mike was a guy who was a solo artist for a long time, Outkast contributor. LP was a guy who was doing production as well as rapping with Company Flow. And they got together in 2013 and created Run the Jewels. And Run the Jewels together, they've created 4 albums as a group. And I think they're definitely superior when it comes to rapping as well as the production. I got them at 10. There are probably a few of you that might have them a lot higher than that, but I really, really like Run the Jewels. LP, one as a producer, is crazy, but he's got bars, and he's always had bars. And Killer Mike is one of the most preeminent wordsmiths from the South that we've had. And I say we because I'm from it. I'm from the South. I live in Atlanta. Yeah, number 10, I got Run the Jewels. Number 9, from Virginia, Clips. The Clips are the Thornton brothers, No Malice and Pusha T. Yes, when I say they're the Thornton brothers, they are truly blood brothers. I think the Clips are one of those groups that, for me, really make me feel good when I hear their music. In 2002, the Neptunes launched their own Star Trek label, and the album that they dropped first was the Clips' debut album, Lord Willing. Listen, that album is still cold to this day. So they had really dark, gritty tales of the drug life and razor sharp wordplay from both MCs. Crazy production. The production from the Neptunes, Pharrell Williams and Chad Hugo, out of this world. They were very influential. Probably my favorite album from the Clips. They had 3 albums, and I think at the time of this recording, a 4th album is on the way. Favorite album is Lord Willing. Oh, I didn't tell you, my favorite Run the Jewels album was their debut album, Run the Jewels. Love that album. So yeah, I'm going to give you the duo, and I'll also give you my favorite album from them. Coming in at number 8. Number 8. From Long Beach in LA, The Dog Pound. The Dog Pound consists of Corrupt and Daz. They've completed 9 studio albums together. My favorite album, 1995's Dog Food. Listen, if you know me, you know that I'm a huge West Coast hip hop head. These dudes got it. I mean, like, from the first time I heard them rap, like, they got it. And the thing that always stood out to me was that, like, even though they were West Coast, LA, Daz is from Long Beach, Corrupt's from LA, uh, they had a LA sound, but they rapped at the time. Like, here's what we said. Me and my friends would always talk about how they sounded like some East Coast rappers, but they were in the middle of the West Coast. And there's a reason for that. It's because of their influence. Now, Corrupt, I think, was born in Philadelphia and he moved to LA or whatever like that. But their sound is very distinct. But these dudes are some rapping ass rappers, and they will rap you under a table. Don't get it twisted. And really, I think at that time in 95 when they came out, a lot of people thought, like, well, actually they came out before 95, but a lot of people, particularly here on the East Coast, kind of looked at it as a slap in the face. Like, it was almost like a backhanded compliment, like, oh, they're from the West, they could rap a little bit. No, they got bars. These dudes can rap. And like I said, 9 albums in, they recently dropped an album earlier this calendar year at the time of this recording, and it's dope. They aren't slowing down. So yeah, coming in at number 8, for me is Dog Pound. Coming in at number 7 from Memphis, Tennessee, 8 Ball and MJG. The members are 8 Ball and MJG. They've completed 8 studio albums together. Probably my favorite album was 1993's Coming Out Hard. Listen, that album got played everywhere. Like, that album came out when I was in college at South Carolina State University. You could not go anywhere without hearing that album. That album was phenomenal. Still is to this, still bangs to this day. But the difference between, what 8 Ball and MJG do in a booth as far as their other Southern counterparts, or maybe even their counterparts like 3-6 from their city, is that, like, they're very distinct. Like, they're very, 8 Ball has this really raspy voice, and MJG is really kind of laid back, easygoing, charismatic. Same for 8 Ball and MJG. You can say the same about both. Very, very charismatic, very laid back. It's not in your face, but they say some old smooth shit and they rap. I mean, like, they really get after it. Yeah, Coming Out Hard was that album still bangs to this day. Like I said, it's my favorite from them. But yeah, those 2 right there, easily coming in at number 7. There's gonna be some people, and I know this already, just because I know who people are. There are gonna be some people that make a case that this group should be higher than 7, and can't necessarily disagree. So yeah, that's where I got them at number 7. All right, number 6, Gangstar, DJ Premier and the rapper Guru. They did a total of 7 studio albums. My favorite is probably 1998's Moment of Truth. Actually, they did 6 studio albums, and the 7th album was one of the best yet, that came out in 2019, which was released after Guru passed in 2010. But it's the thing that's always impressive about these 2 is that one, Premier's from Texas and Guru's from Boston, right? But they had a New York sound. Like, it's the craziest thing. You get a DJ from Texas and a cat from Boston. And I mean, like, they were years into their career before I realized that, like, neither one of them was from New York. But from the boom bap beats from Primo, it was crazy. I mean, like, this duo is one of the best. And obviously Primo did side work for other New York rappers, and his side work along with his work that he did with Guru on the Gangstar albums made him a hip hop household name and made him one of the greatest, if not the greatest producer of all time. But you can't argue with songs like Mass Appeal, Take It Personal, Guru's monotone style. Some people don't like it. I was a fan of it. So I know some people will probably may have them a little higher because they weren't fans of Guru's monotone style, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. And I like Guru, and rest in peace to Guru, who tragically passed away way too early in 2010. Unfortunately, the group became estranged in it was 2003. They became estranged, and they never reunited for another album. They were cool, but they never reunited for another album when Guru passed in 2010. But like I said, Premier did posthumous release a new album from Gangstar using some unreleased tracks, unreleased verses from Guru in 2019 on an album called One of the Best Yet, which is a really, really dope album. Check that out. All in all, man, I think you can make a case that, like I said, some may have, them a little higher, but Gangstar is Gangstar, man. They made, particularly the earlier work, man, it was some dope ass albums, man. And again, they had a sound they had a distinct New York sound, and neither of them were from New York, which was bugged out to me. So obviously rest in peace to the late great Guru, and Primo is, like I said, one of the best to ever do it. I tell you what, let's take a quick commercial break. On the other side of the break, I'll give you the other 5. We're counting down the top 10. I've given you 5 so far. We'll go to a break. We'll give you the other 5 on the other side. Sit tight. We'll be back in just a second. And just like that, we are back. Thanks again for tapping into the Rap Soul podcast. I am your host, 12 Kyle. And again, we're talking about the top 10 rap duos. Now, before the break, I gave you 10 through 6. Let's run it back real quick. At number 10, we had Run the Jewels. At number 9, The Clips. At number 8, The Dog Pound. Number 7, 8 Ball and MJG. And number 6, Gangstar. So now we're down to 5. Listen, I'll be the first to admit that these 5, depending on who you ask, really could be moved around, and there are going to be some people who will make the case that you could take each one of these next 5 and put them at 1. And if we're being honest, there's no argument that can be made, because these are some of the best duos in hip hop history, period. I'm not talking about chart toppers. I'm not talking about the ones who had the most IG followers. I'm talking about just great hip hop music. So that being said, let's get to it. Coming in at number 5, from Port Arthur, Texas, UGK, the Underground Kings. The Underground Kings consist of Bun B and Pimp C, the late great Chad Butler, rest in peace. They had 6 albums combined, 6 studio albums together. My favorite, hands down, is 1996's Riding Dirty. Man, what can I say about UGK? Those dudes were teenagers when their first album came out, Too Hard to Swallow. After that, it was just a run of albums that were just dope. I mean, they gave you what they call quote unquote country rap tunes. This is it's amazing when I think about their run. And even when you think about some of the songs that they had, like Murder, Front, Back, Side to Side, One Day, Pinky Ring, just to name a few. Then you think about how even in their prime, Pimp C was incarcerated. Pimp C went to jail from, I think, 2002 to 2005. And Bun B he wasn't doing any more UGK projects. He went and got on some solo joints, and he got on some guest features and became like known as an MC that would body anybody whose guest feature he got on. And he really held it down for UGK until Pimp came home. He really did. He held it down until Pimp came home. Their last album that they did together, Underground Kings, was dope. And that came out in 2007. But it was short lived because the album came out and 4 months later, Pimp would unfortunately pass away in his sleep. And it was a tough blow to Bun. I think he released one more studio album with some unreleased verses from Pimp C. But listen again, Pimp C, rest in peace. UGK, man, again, there are going to be some people who are listening and watching this that can make a case that UGK could be at one. And honestly, I don't know what I could tell you. I really don't have much to push back on that because these dudes were and still are supremely dope. Again, rest in peace to the late Chad Butler. Number 4. Coming out of Queensbridge, Mobb Deep. Mobb Deep consists of producer / rapper Havoc and Prodigy. They did 8 albums together. My favorite album from Mobb Deep, 1995's The Infamous. Classic album. In his prime, Prodigy was probably one of the best rappers in the game, period, point blank. And again, Havoc, still you can make a case as one of the best producers that we have in hip hop, even to this day and even in the past. I mean, top 10 producer in my opinion. But the way that they looked and the way that they sounded on songs like Shook Ones or Quiet Storm, those are the songs and the albums that help make these two legendary. And I don't throw that word around a lot, but I mean, like, they were just that good. They were really just that good. They briefly split, but then they reunited again before Prodigy unfortunately passed away in 2017. So definitely rest in peace to Prodigy, gone, but definitely not forgotten. But Mobb Deep, man, listen, that hands down one of the best rap duos ever. I don't think that anybody could debate that. Number 3, coming out of Long Island, EPMD. Eric and Parrish Making Dollars. The group consists of Eric Sermon and Parrish Smith. They did 7 studio albums together. There are very few artists, period, who were able to bridge the 80s and the 90s. EPMD did that. EPMD is, in my opinion, one of the greatest hip hop duos, period. They had a rough but laid back style. Their production from Eric Sermon was crazy and funky at the same time. They really had the template for what music should look and sound like in the late 80s to early 90s. And their early album runs from 88 to 92, Strictly Business, Unfinished Business, Business as Usual, and Business Never Personal. That 4-album run, crazy. It's very few who can compare and compete with that. That may be a future podcast, right? But yeah, that run was incredible of albums. EPMD at some point down the road did fall out, and we know the story. And it was devastating because I'll be honest, when I heard that they broke up, I was mad. I was mad and sad because it's like, back then rap groups didn't fold. They didn't break up. So for them to break up, that was saying a lot. And, we heard about it on the radio and it just didn't seem real. But when they got back together, it was all good and they're back together, still rocking. Still rocking after all of these years. But yeah, I had to put EPMD at number 3. You could make a case. You could make a case easily for them being at 1. But yeah, shout out to Eric and Parrish making dollars. We're coming down to the top 2. This is interesting because this is a duo. This isn't a group. We have a MC and we have a DJ. And that would be none other than Eric B and Rakim. They are at number 2. The members are Eric B and Rakim. They had 4 studio albums together. My favorite album from them is a no-brainer. If you know me, it is 1987's Paid in Full, which I will say, in my personal opinion, biases included, I think it is the greatest hip-hop album ever. Ever. Let me say that again. I think it's the greatest hip-hop album ever. Rakim, hands down, is arguably one of the greatest MCs ever. And he absolutely changed the game when he came through the door in 1987. But you can make a case that he did his best work on Eric B and Rakim's first 3 or 4 albums. But I think, well, I won't say 4 albums. Let's say the first 3 albums, because I think you can make a case, and a lot of people have made the case that the first 3 albums are like, 4.5, maybe 5 mic albums. And you get an argument from me because they got those mics. But yeah, so that would put it in classic status. And that's hard to argue. It really and truly is hard to argue that those first 3 albums are some of the best albums that we've ever heard. And it was with Eric B. And over a period of time, like, Eric B hasn't really found his footing as a solo artist. He has, but it's not the same. And the same for Rakim. I mean, Rakim, at the time of this recording, recently had an album drop. But it's not the same without Eric B. And he hasn't worked with Eric B in years. As far as I know, they're still cool. They tour from time to time. But yeah, I had to put him at 2. But you could make a case. You could easily make a case that they could be 1. So here we are at number 1. Before I get into number 1, let's go back. Coming in at number 5, the Underground Kings, aka UGK, Bun B and Pimp C. Number 4, Mobb Deep, Prodigy and Havoc. Number 3, Eric Sermon and Parrish Smith, aka EPMD. And number 2, Eric B and Rakim, coming in at number 2. And number 1, right here in the ATL, Outkast. Outkast consists of Big Boy and Andre 3000. Together they made 6 studio albums, including my favorite, 1998's Aquemini. What can I say? I think there's some people that may not have Outkast at 1. I don't know how you couldn't have them at 1. I'll be honest. But Outkast, they're one of the few groups I think that those albums, as they came out, progressively got better each time that they came out. So I don't think, for as great as Southern Playlist Cadillac Music was, I think, AT Aliens was that much better. And for as great as AT Aliens was, I think Aquemini was that much better. And so Outkast, I think, is just one of those groups that they evolved. And even their sound, their look, their appeal, it changed over time. I mean, like, you can literally hear in their albums how, if you listen to like some of the last couple of songs on each album, they're kind of like a preview of what's going to happen on the next album. Their duo that obviously I have to remove my biases, but I'm a huge fan of. As I said before on another episode, those are my guys, literally and figuratively. I And I told the story before, and I'll tell it again maybe at some point, but I actually sat in on a listening session of the Equipment Eye album and got a chance to meet Big Boy. I had seen Big Boy around the city before because, living in Atlanta, you would see Outkast, you would see Andre and Big Boy wherever. You could be at the mall, it could be at the grocery store, and they're always just really just down home, cool cats, not on some rah-rah fan type stuff. They just regular dudes. But I got a chance to actually sit in on a listening and mixing session. Dre wasn't there, but Big Boy was there as well as their manager. That was really cool being at Stankonia. Stankonia is a very it's funny because Stankonia, their studio, is, if you pass by it from the outside, it looked like the most randomest of random buildings. Like, it doesn't look anything like a studio. Like, it looks like maybe someplace where you would go pick up your post office box mail at. But it is the home of the funk, and so it was good to be there. But that's not why I have them at one. I think Outkast is, definitely one of the greatest duos ever, and I think their music serves as a reminder of what we can do when we, one, try and dare to be different. Because, like I said, all of their albums sound totally different from the first album to the last album. And Outkast is one of those groups that personally, like, I never get tired of hearing their music. And I think that's one of the things that speaks about their longevity, even though we're not factoring longevity into this conversation. But the replayability of their albums is still there. And they always come with something. It's always something. It's always funky. As you all know, Big Boy is still making music as an MC. Andre, not so much. At the time of this recording, Andre has made a instrumental flute album. He's now playing the flute. People always ask, because they know I'm such a fan and I'm tapped in with them. I mean, I don't know them personally. Let me start by saying that. But people always ask, like, do you think we'll ever get another Outkast album? We are never getting another Outkast album because Andre doesn't want to rap. And I respect it. I don't like it, but I respect it. I respect his wishes that he doesn't want to rap anymore. And that's cool. I would rather him say, I don't want to rap anymore, as opposed to him going in a booth and rapping some bullshit. I don't want to hear that. But I do miss them as a duo. But, the great thing about their music, just like everybody else's music on here, that I mentioned, anytime you want to hear it and get that feeling, just press play. Just press play and it'll take you back. And, but yeah, there you have it. That is my certified top 10 hip hop duos. And that is going to do it for me. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Rap Show. I'm getting tongue tied here. The Rap Soul Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. You can find this podcast on any major platform, any streaming platform, wherever you're listening. Please, ma'am, please, sir, hit subscribe. If you haven't done it, hit it right now. Because I really and truly believe that once you hear one episode, you're going to want to hear another one and another one and another one. And we got something for that. Because this is the birth, if you will, of the Rap Soul Podcast. What I decided to do was not just give you one episode, but actually 3 episodes. So after you finish listening to this episode, understand that there are 2 other episodes that you should go check out, listen to those, and then come back next Monday, because there's going to be a new episode every Monday going forward. Again, we're on all streaming platforms. The link tree is in the show notes. Click the link tree and subscribe there. If you would like to continue this discussion, this is very important. Go to our Reddit page. There's a Reddit page just for this particular podcast. Go to Reddit, the Rap Soul Podcast. It's right there. And hop in there and tell us what you think. Tell us If we got it wrong, if I got it wrong, if you would move some people around, give me your certified top 10. I would love to hear your feedback. But be clear, keep your comments respectful. Respect yourself and respect others. We don't want no problems. We're grown people here. I shouldn't have to tell you this, but every now and then somebody gets in the comments and says something crazy. But don't say anything crazy. Let's just keep it professional. Let's keep it G, and we'll be cool. All comments are welcome. All opinions are golden. Disrespect ain't. Always remember that. Respect yourself and respect others. I also welcome your feedback on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, subscribe there if you want to watch the episodes, or if you want to listen on YouTube. The Rap Soul Podcast on YouTube. You can subscribe there and also leave comments there in the comment section. You can also comment on Spotify as well. We're on Spotify as well. Keep in mind, like I said, that this is the birth of this podcast. So there are 2 other episodes. Go listen to those episodes. This is the Rap Soul Podcast. This is the intersection of rap, soul, hip hop, and R&B from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. Last but not least, if you're on social media, Twitter X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, TikTok, follow us there, the Rap Soul Podcast. You can follow me, 12 Kyle, on those platforms as well. Again, that's going to do it for me. Again, thank you for checking out this edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. Remember, there's 2 other episodes that you can go listen to. Go check those out right now. We'll catch you guys next time. 5,000.
Thank you for listening. This concludes the episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast. You can find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the podcast on social media. And feel free to continue this discussion on our Reddit page. More importantly, share this podcast with a friend or family member who loves music as much as you do. Until next time, 5,000.